Okay, I've got this Mass, and then I have the Mass tonight at 6. So what should I do in between? Maybe I'll go catch a movie. Yeah. There's that movie that just came out about the local rappers. What's it called? Oh, yeah, Straight Outta Cuna. Do that. Oh, the fair is also going on this week. Oh, I could go to the fair. Oh, I haven't had a Pronto pup in a long time. What should I do? What should I do? Oh, I just can't decide. Okay. Oh, all right. Okay. Now I know. And then I'll come back and I'll have Mass tonight. And afterwards, what am I going to have for dinner? I've got that beautiful T-bone that's just waiting for the grill. Oh, that sounds good. Or I could make a salad, I guess. No, that one was practice. Isn't it funny? The ways that we decide by not deciding. Our readings have to do with making a decision. The first reading, we see Joshua. And just to remind you, Joshua was the successor of Moses. Moses brought the people through the desert where they wandered for 40 years because Moses, being a typical man, refused to stop and ask for directions. But he died just outside the promised land. And it was Joshua who then led the people into the promised land. And Joshua is addressing the people. And he said, here we are in this new land. We have new neighbors around us, and they have lots of their own traditions, their own understandings. They have their own gods. And so the time has come. You've got to decide. Are you going to follow some of these gods of our neighbors? Because it's something new, because it seems a little bit less demanding? Well, Joshua says, you can do what you want. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Boom. Positive, definitive statement. Our gospel, which is the conclusion of this, what we call the bread of life discourse, the 6th chapter of John's gospel that we've heard these last couple weeks. It starts off today by saying that many of Jesus' followers said, this talk is hard to take. Well, the talk that they were referring to was from earlier in the chapter when Jesus was talking about himself as the bread of life. And Jesus saying things like, my body is true food and my blood is true drink. Saying things like, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you shall not have life in you. That's what some of the disciples were finding hard to accept. And because of that, they decided that they weren't going to follow anymore. And Jesus, and I'm guessing he might have been rather discouraged, but as he watched him walk away, he didn't yell out to him and threaten them and, you guys better come back here, or my Father's going to get you. You're going to burn in hell. No, nothing like that. But he turned to the 12. He turned to his close friends and said, well, there are lots of others that are leaving. Are you going to leave too? Is this too hard for you to accept? And Peter spoke on behalf of them and said, Lord, where else are we going to find anything as good as what we have right here? You have the words of spirit and life. So they decided. And now us. I read a wonderful statement in a commentary this week about this gospel. And the writer was talking about Jesus' invitation in the gospel to the fullness of life. And some said no to that invitation. And he said, that's okay. He said, God's invitation can be rejected. It can't be diluted. Jesus invites us to life! Yeah. Not to life. If you don't have anything better to do. Christ's invitation can be rejected. We have that freedom, but it can't be diluted. And that's maybe the challenge for us, where we have Joshua, where we have Peter saying so strongly, yes, Lord, I choose you. When was the last time that we made that strong of a statement, of a commitment, of an acceptance to Christ's invitation? Are we eager to grow in our love of God? Are we eager? Are we desiring to draw closer to Jesus, to understand his message, to be filled with the fire and the joy It causes us to want to reach out to others, taste and see the goodness of the Lord, we sang. Or are we just kind of on faith cruise control? You know, we spent these Sundays in August looking at the question of, our faith. Why be Catholic? And for how many of us, if we really look into our hearts, it's been too long since we've answered that positively, strongly for ourselves. Is our answer, why be Catholic? Why follow Christ? Unfortunately, maybe it's what I'm used to doing. It's what I've been doing all my life. I need to set a good example for the kids. But for me, it doesn't matter to God where we are in our lives. We don't have to try and measure our own holiness. Certainly not by comparing ourselves to anybody else. But simply, am I wanting to grow in whatever way? Am I wanting to understand my faith better? Am I wanting to understand what it means to serve by joining with parishioners, with others? Have I been thinking about the invitation to be a lector, a Eucharistic minister, a greeter? But I don't want to be scheduled because then that means that I'll have to go to Mass on that Sunday. And I'm not sure if it's going to fit into my plans. Christ's invitation can be rejected, but it can't be diluted. As long as we are continuing to try and grow, as long as we have that desire to be more in our faith than we have been, to not just sit back and say, well, this is good enough, then we are embracing the invitation to life, and we will live, and we will grow. And if we don't grow, we start to shrivel. We begin to lose it. We never stay in the same place. So, the question is my faith truly an important part of my life? Something that affects the way I make decisions, something that affects the priorities that I set with my time? Or is it more of a leisure activity? More of a, okay, well, I've met my obligation, that should be good enough. I don't know if I've shared this with you before. I don't think so, but I would like to buy $3 worth of God, please. I'd like to buy just a little of the Lord. Not enough to explode my soul or disturb my sleep. Not enough to take control of my life. I'll keep just enough to equal a cup of warm milk. Just enough to ease some of the pain for my guilt. I would like to buy $3 worth of God, please. I'd like to find a love that's pocket-sized. Not enough to make me love a stranger. Not enough to change my heart. I can only stand just enough to take to church when I have time. Just enough to equal a snooze in the sunshine. I want ecstasy, but not transformation. I want the warmth of the womb, but not a new birth. I would like to purchase a pound of the eternal in a paper sack, guaranteed or money back. You see, I would like to buy $3 worth of God, please. Jesus says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the fullest. Are we wanting more of that fullness? As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. The invitation is placed before us. What will we decide?